You're traveling through a podcast not only of sound and, well, more sound, but of two guys talking about forgotten movies. A journey into a film by Richard Kelly as he tried to regress back to his Donnie Darko roots after the unwarranted failure that was Southland Tales. A film so confusing for confusing's sake that you'll wonder if even he knew what the fuck was going on in the box. There's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, crushed celluloid.
Okay, today we are talking about 2009's The Box, the movie that is commonly referred to as that movie that no one commonly refers to.
Yeah, and like the title suggests, it is about a box.
It is.
And actually, we're kind of breaking our own rules to do this movie.
Yeah.
Usually our standards are it has to be at least 10 years old and relatively forgotten. This one is definitely forgotten,
Yes.
but it actually only came out like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But you know what? It feels like 10, so that's good enough for us.
It does. It really does. I mean, I definitely remember it coming out, and I was really excited, and then just... I don't even remember reading any reviews about it or anything. It's just like it just...
Well, this actually wasn't
went.
it wasn't screened for critics. It just came
Really?
out. Yeah. Which is usually a bad sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it definitely seemed like, I remember when it came out to theaters, I remember when it came out on DVD, I always really wanted to see it, it just never happened. And we're both big fans of Richard Kelly, and I think we're some of the only people that really fucking love Southland Tales.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Which actually, after watching this movie, which I did actually enjoy quite a bit, I went back and I watched Southland Tales again. I just wanted to.
I was thinking about it. I mean, I wouldn't say I enjoyed this movie. I had this weird love-hate thing with it. But, I mean, going from Richard Kelly, you went from Donnie Darko to, like, which is just this very dark, menacing kind of ephemeral movie.
Let's
very
talk
cool,
about his career a bit, because this is only really, like, his third feature film.
Yeah.
He basically, I think he did, like, 2 short films, probably when he was a student. Donnie Darko was his first film, which fucking blew me away when I first saw it.
Yeah.
But I think I've seen it like 3 times.
Yeah, I've seen it a little bit more. I owned it and I watched a lot, but I remember my brother just telling me to go to Blockbuster, rent this movie, and just don't look at the back or anything, just go in blind. And I did it, and I was just blown the fuck away. I was like, oh my god, this movie's amazing. And everyone else, I mean, it really became a cultural phenomenon, and everyone talked about Donnie Darko and had fan theories and things like this. It
got
really...
a little bit overblown, and that's why I said I think I've only seen it like 3 times. I think I saw it the first time, and I was like, it blew me away, so I went out and bought it. And then I think I watched it a second time, and I picked up on little nuances I didn't notice the first time around. And then I think I watched it a third time sometime later, and I was like, I think I've gotten everything I'm going to get out of this film.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I watched it, but yeah, eventually I was just like, you know what, this movie isn't quite as deep as I think I thought it was.
Well, I think we also saw it at the right time when we were teenagers. We were just like, oh my god, this is so meaningful.
Yeah, definitely a good teenager movie. And then Richard Kelly essentially just disappeared off the map for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, because Donnie Darko was like early 2000s, and Southland Tales didn't come out till what, like 2006?
Yeah, I want to say 2006, and... it came out with there was just this huge hype around it because it was fucking the Donnie Darko guy, and then it just looked so weird and complicated, and like there were these comic books that you were supposed to read beforehand, and it felt like there was this general hype about it. Then it came out, and almost everyone, like, it was just generally panned by everyone.
But I fucking loved it.
Oh man, it was great. Like, I had no idea Richard Kelly would have that great of a comedic feel and comedic timing. Like, that movie is hilarious.
Well, I think that's the thing about it. I think people wanted another Donnie Darko. They wanted something very dark and kind of like surreal and shit. But this is the complete opposite of that. Like, it does kind of have some of those moments, but it's mostly just really biting social commentary and just hilarious moments with great performances across the board.
And just one of the most quotable movies of the last 10 years. Just amazing lines like, do you want to fuck or watch a movie? Like, it's just great lines in it. And then 3 years later, after his career looks kind of dead, he comes out with The Box, which apparently was a career killer in the end.
Apparently, because I think the only thing he's done other than this is that he wrote the screenplay for the film Domino, which came out around the same time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I like Domino.
No,
a lot of people hated
it,
but I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, it had that nice Tom Waits appearance as well.
Yeah,
that was very weird.
That helps out a lot. But
yeah, but I mean, he hasn't done anything since then. I think he has like 1 or 2 movies lined up to do, but yeah, we haven't seen anything from him in 5 years since this came out.
I'd be surprised if he could get anything pushed through Hollywood, like anything on a big budget anymore after the failure that was The Box. And the funny thing is that I think if The Box came out before Southland Tales, like if that was his second movie, people would have gone apeshit over it, almost.
I think
apeshit,
so.
They would have liked it a lot more.
Well, I think, yeah, that would have been a much better progression, because I think going from Donnie Darko to The Box, those two films are way more similar. And
Yeah,
Southland
they're
Tales is like
extremely
the weird... It's the second movie thing. Like every like big director that has a breakout hit with their first film, their second film usually kind of tanks or just doesn't do as well.
Yeah.
And it's definitely suffers from that.
I think the general feeling... I think the general feeling was that Richard Kelly had kind of gotten too big of a head about how big Donnie Darko was and how deep people looked into it.
But he didn't really, because it was that big and people did look into it that much.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying it just kind of went to his head, and so I think people are also taking that into Southland Tales, like he's just being pretentious and up his own ass just to be pretentious and up his own ass. That they didn't want to look for meaning in it because it all just seemed weird and nonsensical. Whereas
well,
Donnie Darko,
it kind of is, but
yeah,
it's still an enjoyable movie. Which is what it is.
Yeah.
It's all it is. It's a movie.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really good. I actually really enjoy it. I liked looking into it. I like trying to figure out what the fuck's going on because it's really fucking strange. And I think it does have something deeper to say. And it kind of because it gets to the heart of he was kind of prescient in the way it talks about this global surveillance system or this national surveillance system. And it has this kind of NSA type thing set up.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Where they're just kind of monitoring everybody in the country as much as possible through these various methods.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I enjoy a lot of the subtle touches in that movie, too. Because you notice it does almost kind of like a Verhoeven, like Starship Troopers, kind of like, would you like to know more, kind of news screens and stuff. But I like the subtle touches to where, like, you'll notice there's little advertisements for, like, Bud Light and Hustler in the corners while they're talking about the war and everything.
Yeah. No, Southland Tales was extremely underrated, but I understand at the same time because it's really a hard movie to get into. I would say,
yeah. So I actually had a lot build up to see this movie, The Box, because I don't know, I don't know why I never saw it. It just never happened, but I always really wanted to. And also, Richard Kelly also wrote this, but it's based off a short story called Button Button by Richard Matheson, who also wrote, like, he wrote I Am Legend, he wrote What Dreams May Come, A Stir of Echoes, which all got turned into movies. He wrote the screenplay for Jaws 3D, just so you know. And he also wrote the story and the screenplay for Duel, which was one of Steven Spielberg's first movies.
Oh, yep. Huh, I didn't know that.
But
That's
yeah, no,
cool.
it definitely was pretty much a flop. I think the budget was like $16 million, and it only grossed $15 million domestically and like 33 worldwide. So worldwide, it kind of made its money back, and it probably made some money on video. But yeah, it pretty much was a complete bomb.
Yeah, and what was Southland? Southland Tales had to be at least $50 million.
Oh yeah, that was a much bigger budget, so he definitely scaled back a bit for this movie. But I think it works out much better for it.
I think it's to middling kind of.
Well,
results.
it's a much smaller scale movie as well. Like, it doesn't take the kind of shit that Southland Tales needed to make it happen.
No, but it feels like it's really trying to harp on Donnie Darko, even kind of having it set in the not too distant past.
A little bit, but I don't know. I almost kind of saw this movie more in certain scenes and certain aspects as more like kind of a Kubrick nod in a lot of ways.
It's, definitely a lot of 2001 imagery going into this.
Not even 2001. Also, a lot of Eyes Wide Shut imagery. Like, I don't even know. Like, very early on, there's a scene, kind of an opening scene of them doing their morning bathroom stuff. Very reminiscent of Eyes Wide Shut. And there are just several kind of hallway shots, and especially when they go to parties and stuff, where it's just very reminiscent of, like, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in Eyes Wide Shut and just the way it's shot. I kept picking up on that throughout the film.
I could see that. One of the things that kept coming up for me is the music cues. For a while I thought he was trying to make like an Alfred Hitchcock type thriller. Like the music cues are just so overblown.
Well, see, here's the thing. Arcade Fire, that band that I've never really listened to, they did the score for the movie. And apparently it was like their first time doing a score for a movie.
Oh, that's what happened.
And there are certain
scenes,
shows. Yeah, there are certain scenes where it works very well, where it's more kind of low key and stuff. But there are some scenes where not a lot is going on, but the music cue and the score is just so overblown compared to what's going on. It's distracting.
It is. It's really distracting, and it also takes away from those moments where they get subtle and do the music right. Because you're like, now you're being subtle? Like when you're... Because they get subtle when it's supposed to be overblown, and overblown when nothing's fucking happening. And I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on?
I feel like might have tried to be some kind of a choice, but it's mostly early on and towards the middle of the film where it's really distracting. But then towards the second half and the end of the film, the music got way better. The score got way better to it.
It did, yeah. The beginning, it just... And, I don't know if that was a choice or not. Like I said, I thought like he was trying to make it... Like, that's why I almost thought it was a Hitchcock nod in a way to kind of be like... to kind of phone in the narrative the way Hitchcock kind of does with cues, like visual and music
could be
cues.
Because it does seem like there's just a lot of different kind of nods to different genres and different directors in this.
Yeah, it's just the story is way too convoluted to be Hitchcockian. Like Hitchcock gives the veneer of convoluted but scales it back by the end, whereas this movie gives the veneer of being simple but overblows it completely by the end.
Yeah, which is the thing. Like, there kept being parts in this movie where I would look and I'd be like, oh my god, there's still an hour and 15 minutes in this movie.
Yeah.
There's still 45 minutes in this movie. There's still 20 minutes left in this movie because it's almost like 3 different movies rolled into one. I really thought that this was just going to be about like the main story of the couple getting a box where they can push the button, they will get $1 million, and someone in the world they don't know will die. And I thought the whole thing was going to be about their kind of them having to decide whether or not to do this and all the moral aspects of that. But that's like the first 20 minutes is that. And then they make their decision and then it goes off from there. So it surprised me in that regard.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a pretty straightforward morality play.
Yeah.
And then it went off the rails by the end. And so I guess let's get into the beginning. And Cameron Diaz, and who's the actor, the husband?
James Marsden.
James Marsden, they have the worst fucking Southern accents I've heard in a while.
Okay, James Marsden isn't that bad. Yeah, no,
James Marsden isn't that bad, yeah.
Yeah, but Cameron Diaz, man.
Oh,
and that's the thing. That's why I think I ended up really liking this movie probably even more than you did, is because shit like that, there's a lot of little things and a lot of faults and flaws in this movie, but somehow I was so intrigued and entertained and just excited about what was going on throughout the movie that it overcame all of those flaws for me, and I was still in it the whole time.
I know. I will say I was invested. Just by the end, I didn't care anymore.
But I will say, as far as Diaz, her weird Southern accent thing that she's doing, because it takes place in Virginia, which is like kind of Southern, but it's not that fucking Southern, man.
No, it's like,
it reminds me of like the accents from Varsity Blues. Like
yeah, no, she's doing like a Texas or like a Kentucky kind of Southern accent. It is not playing well.
Bad. But as the movie progresses, she loses that accent more and more. And
yeah,
it definitely gets better. It seems like in the beginning she was really trying to do that Southern accent, and then she just scales it back, way back as the movie progresses.
Yeah. Well, I think she just forgets that she's supposed to be doing a Southern accent every once in a while, because there's just random lines where she'll do half Southern and then kind of sink back into Cameron Diaz voice.
Cut her some slack, man. It's hard to do a Southern accent.
No, it is, and I will give her that. And she has moments where she kind of captures it, but then just parts where she's just going way over the top, then parts where she's not doing anything at all. So it's all over the map.
Yeah, and I will say that's one of the main faults of this movie is Cameron Diaz. Like, there are certain scenes where she does okay, or like she does a decent job, but overall it is just bad. And usually the scenes where I'm thinking of where she does okay, it's scenes where it's her not like talking or anything, and it's usually just the way the shot is set up. Like, one of my favorite shots of the movie is while they're at that wedding reception thing, and James Marsden is outside and Cameron Diaz is inside dancing on like her new foot thing. And they just
Yeah.
kind of like have that moment staring back and forth at each other where they're dealing with what's going on, but they're also just still in love and smiling back at each other. Like, that was a really beautiful scene. And I thought she did great in that. But of course, she didn't have to talk or really do anything. So take from that what you will.
her voice is just, I mean, and I don't normally dislike her that much, but her voice just grated on me anytime she was talking, and I was just like, oh my god. And not even necessarily the southern accent. It's like she's doing this almost huskier version of her voice that was just weird, and I couldn't do it.
Well, I think at this point, I mean, it's happened so much. I think Cameron Diaz is kind of a detriment to movies at this point in time. Like, I can't remember the last time I really enjoyed her in a movie.
No, but anyway, so I do want to talk about the classroom scene. Well,
yes,
I guess
I do.
let's talk about the box that they get. This is how you know it's the 70s, is they get delivered an undescript box and they decide to open it. Like, they don't freak out about it.
It's left on their doorstep at like 5:45 in the morning.
Yes, 5:45.
Which, by the
exactly.
way, numbers in this movie all the way through, times, like clock changes, there's just numbers written around in places. I kept writing those down and then trying to make some sense of like what they're supposed to add up to, and I know there's something about it, but it was fucking useless.
Yeah, there's definitely something about it, but no, like, there's nothing. It's something. It's a deep Easter egg that nobody probably cares enough to go after, and just whatever. But yeah, so they get this box. It's just a weird little box with a button under a glass encasing and a note that says, "I'll see you at 5, M. Stewart," or something. Stewart.
Yeah.
And then we go to the classroom because Cameron Diaz is a teacher, and we meet the creepiest fucking kid.
Okay,
in
in
the
addition to
history
this,
of
though,
cinema.
I will have to say, I was like, nice. Like, why didn't I go to school in the 70s? They're teaching kids about no exit in, like, high school.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, they were teaching John Paul Sartre's no
Which,
exit.
by the way, I know that you would love that about this movie, is that every single character pronounces it Sart.
Yep.
They don't say Sartre, which I know is a big pet peeve of yours. So I was like, oh, I bet Cole's enjoying this right now.
Yeah, they got it right.
He's like, finally, my day has come.
Richard Kelly was on the sidelines being a complete dick about it. Like, no, I know that's how it looks, but that's not how you pronounce it. But yeah, they're teaching no exit, the classic.
Which, by the way,
play.
it basically runs throughout the entire film. Like, they're just kind of beating you over the head with no exit throughout this movie.
Yes, and in the end, really, I vaguely see how it connects, but not really. Like, it's because no exit is just.
I think that's something to kind of maybe make you think more about it and question what was going on the entire time, more so than it actually has anything to do with what was happening.
I think it's a red herring, like what most people accuse Richard Kelly of doing, which is just throwing in weirdness for weirdness' sake, especially with Southland Tales, like giving pieces that don't really connect. Which is something people enjoy in stuff like David Lynch.
Yeah, and
but
I think if anything, like, No Exit's maybe just supposed to kind of imply a vibe throughout the film, and maybe like make you question a little bit of it, but I don't think it's supposed to be a direct connector to what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll get to this in the end, but it's about hell is other people, it's about being trapped in hell, and this whole religious aspect boils up at the end. But
yeah, and the whole hell is other people thing, that's more kind of like hell is having to be seen as a person through someone else's eyes kind of thing.
Yeah, hell is other people seeing you for who you
and
truly
judging
are.
you based on your actions.
Yeah. And so there's this kid in her classroom that's just he's
oh
just
my
starts
god,
off
I
like,
love this kid so much.
It's like he's just this weird fucking kid. He's just like, what's wrong with your foot? I see you limping. And he's so maniacal about it. He's like, can we see what your foot looks like?
He is so turned on by the weird foot.
Oh my god. And Cameron Diaz, for some reason, does what he asks and just
inappropriate.
Totally inappropriate for a classroom.
But it's the
shows her
70s.
foot, and this kid is just lusting after her foot, like just looking at it like he is about to run over and just hump it.
I
like,
think he came by looking at it. That's what it seemed like.
It looks like it, and she just sits there and doesn't put her sock back on or anything. Like, this has gotten really weird really fast, and no, like, and the other kids are mumbling in the room, but they're just. Oh my god, it was so it's very unprofessional. Cameron Diaz in the first place, but Jesus Christ.
Well, actually, there's a
weird.
scene a little bit afterwards where she gets called to, I guess, like the principal's office or something.
Yeah,
and he's eventually telling her that, like, apparently her kid isn't going to be able to go for free because she's a faculty member next semester. They cut that, so she's going to have to pay for it. But I totally thought she was about to get fired for fucking taking off her boot and showing her weird foot to her class during.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. It's just like, okay, there's a lot of talk about your foot. You really don't need to be showing classrooms.
Yeah, that's really
your
inappropriate. That this kid, you know, he has a weird foot thing. Like, you don't encourage him.
Yeah. Fucking weird. And yeah, and then while the principal is telling her that she will no longer be able to send her son there, his nose starts bleeding, which is a form of foreshadowing.
Yeah, yeah. And at first I was just like, okay, nosebleed, that's gonna have something to do with something.
Yeah, that's obviously gonna have something to do with
something. So anyway, can we get to my favorite actor in the movie? My favorite parts of the movie is with Frank Langella as Stewart, which, by the way, I'm like 99% sure that he's basically missing half of his face because he got struck by lightning. That's a CGI effect. And
of course.
Well, I don't know. I kept hoping with all of my might that it was a practical, like, makeup effect.
No. You could totally, like, one of my big problems with the movie was his face effect, because it has that. It's not quite that well done, so you always kind of feel that negative space. That's where his face should be.
Well, that's the thing. It's
like,
just there are times when he isn't talking and it's just there to where I was like, oh, that could totally be a practical effect. But then whenever he talked and you saw, like, the insides and his teeth through it and everything, I was like, oh, that's CGI. It really should have been a practical effect.
Yeah, it could have been done better, but I guess they thought it was going to be able to work better than it did. But yeah, it did not look good in the final product. But no, Frank Langella is definitely the best actor in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, and he does have just this menacing charisma throughout his entire role.
Yeah, he does. But he shows up and he sent the family the box. The whole premise or the beginning premise of this movie is that you press the button, someone you don't know dies somewhere in the world, you get $1 million. Then the box moves on. If you don't press it, it gets reprogrammed and someone else gets the option. And so her and her husband talk about, are they going to press this button? And then about 15 minutes before the next day, they do. They press the button. The guy comes back, gives them a case full of $1 million, takes the button, and goes away.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, he does have a good line before he leaves, though. He's just like, well, is someone else going to get the box now? He's like, oh, they are. And I assure you it's someone that you do not know.
Exactly. I was just like, oh, fuck, that's going to come full circle.
Yeah, it's like, well, of course they're going to die because of the box now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, it's going to go to someone that you don't know, just like you killed someone that you don't know.
Yeah. And we also, while they're pressing the button, we find there's this whole other scene where this woman gets shot in her home. We find out because... luckily, Cameron Diaz's father is the chief of police, that the father ran away after the wife is shot, and they found this child in a bathroom looking scared. Anyway. Yeah,
and this is all, again, this is happening so early in the film that this doesn't really come into play. You don't really understand what is happening until the end of the film.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole big, middle sequence of shit happening where they're kind of piecing it together. But yeah, most of this film, I had no idea what was going on, but I was still very invested in what was happening throughout it.
Yeah, and when the police go to check out the first dead woman, the one that the husband shot. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess there hasn't been multiple at this point, but the dead woman is the first instance of Arcade Fire way overblowing their load, because the
like
police
when the police are walking up the stairs and stuff, and it's very a slow scene, and it's just like
yeah, no, because when they walk into the room and see the dead woman, it's like it's just like, we don't know who this woman is. This doesn't mean anything to us.
Yeah, no, the score was very hit and miss, definitely, but I do think the movie progressed, like towards the end of the film, especially when it was much more subdued and kind of subtle, it was actually pretty good.
No, if you took the subdued moments and isolated them from the rest of the film, they would play very well. The problem is that this bombast is going on in every other scene, so it detracts from those scenes where they actually got it right, because they just overplayed their hand right before it.
Yeah.
And so you're like, really, God, come on, guys, why weren't you doing this the whole time? it really shows this is their first outing on this, and I'm really surprised it made it through the entire editing process. It has to be. I can't imagine Kelly wasn't on top of that, and that's just something he decided to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just a big Arcade Fire fan.
Maybe it's just like, guys, just have fun with it. I'm not even gonna listen to it. We're putting out the movie with whatever you've done.
You know what? I trust you.
I trust you, Arcade Fire. You're my boys. That's my Richard Kelly impression.
If I ever meet Arcade Fire, which I don't know how I would ever know that because I don't know what they look like, but that's exactly what I would say to them.
You know what, Arcade Fire? You got moxie. You're my boys.
I got your back, Arcade Fire.
I got your back, Arcade Fire. You ever need anything, you come see old Kelly. I'm just gonna start referring to myself as
Old Kelly.
Old Kelly. Anyway, back to... So we're going to try... We discussed this beforehand. We're going to try and minimize this plot as much as possible.
Yeah, basically, I think the main
impossible.
thing is that whenever we just talk about the end of the movie, then we'll just explain what everything's about.
Yeah, and we'll give you a spoiler warning just in case, because this movie, I guess, a lot actually does hinge on the end, but it's really hard to call where the climax is, because it just keeps changing.
Yeah, it does. And, I mean, it's not just hinged on the end, because by the middle, like, you start getting hints and glimpses of what it is. You're just not completely sure what's going on, but it kind of all comes together. And I'd say, you know, within the last 20 minutes, I kind of knew what was going to happen, but it was still done pretty well.
Yeah, and okay, so let's get to the pre-wedding party. Is that you okay with skipping to there?
Yeah. I'm fine.
Okay, so there's this pre-wedding party for Cameron Diaz's sister, I think.
They're somehow related to her. Yeah, I think it's like her sister or her brother is getting married, some shit like that. And
so just to kind of gloss over real quick, then go back. There's a present at the party that looks just like the box they got. And so Cameron Diaz and the husband decide to take it because they're really freaked out now. They didn't think the button was going to work or anything. They didn't know it was going to happen. Now they're afraid it did work. They take the indescript box. There's a picture of a man inside that's Frank Lagella's character,
but with his face. It's like an older picture.
But also, the creepy kid is at the party, and he gives them a peace sign, which looks like a number 2, but he keeps calling a peace sign.
Well, yeah, they keep calling it that, but I immediately was just like, 2?
Yeah.
What
I was
2?
like, number 2? Yeah, at first I was like, are the presents numbered? Like, I never once thought peace sign. I was just like, oh, of course, that's going to mean 2.
Well, yeah, so as soon as it came up later in the film, I was like, okay, 2, yeah. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. And so...
But I will say, during this scene, there is one scene, like... I think when James Morrison and Cameron Diaz are about to like have a conversation before they separate, there's just a really nice shot of just old white people dancing that just was cracking me up. I love that.
Oh man, my favorite shot is like this. It was a very Richard Kelly shot, and I loved it. But when the husband, Marsden, is sitting across the table right before they're about to hand out the presents, and there is just an old woman staring daggers at him.
I love that, just mean old lady, and then an indifferent old man, like, looking at the ceiling, sitting next to her.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful scene.
Oh, that's awesome. Those are the parts I love about Richard Kelly movies. But, so, and then after this, Marsden talks to Chief Police Dad, gives him the license plate number of the guy. They get a call at the party. Yeah, Cameron Diaz gets a call at the party. It's the guy telling him you just made a big mistake. Anyway, going back, so what seems to have happened is that they were going to be fine until, or what I was gathering, until he gave the license plate number.
Well, I don't think they were ever going to be fine.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that before that, there's the whole present scene. So that was already set up for them to happen before they gave the license plate number. So did the license plate really even matter to the film at all in the end?
Well, I think he was just trying to tell them, don't fucking investigate what we're doing. Like, we know what you're doing. Don't try to fuck around with us.
See, I thought he said, well, maybe I missed I figured he was trying to say, now you fucked up, now things are going to get worse for you. Like, that's kind of what I got from it, but I could easily see the other way around.
Well, yeah, he might have just been trying to intimidate them into not investigating further. But I think no matter what happens in the end to them was going to happen no matter what, because I think that's the cycle of the experiment.
I think so. And then there's another weird part where the butler who brings Cameron Diaz to the phone, he gets a nosebleed and he just looks really confused, like he doesn't know what he just did. And that's kind of where the movie's kind of going.
Yeah, and I will admit, from kind of this scene where they get the picture and then things start to escalate, like, it gets really intense and you're very intrigued by what's going on. Even though you have no idea what the fuck is happening, like, the movie is very intense and it grabs you and keeps you there.
Yeah,
I was never bored during this movie. I was aching to find out what the fuck was going on the entire time.
Yeah, no, this movie is extremely intriguing. Like, it's not a bad movie by any degree. It's just...
It has its faults, but I respect it for being able to rise above all the faults it does have to keep me entertained the entire time.
Yeah, it's trying. This movie is showing up for itself. It is doing everything it can. It's suffering from an extremely convoluted fifth act.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it does contain a lot of, like, red herrings and heavy-handedness, because even, like, when they try to leave that party, fucking no exit is written on the windshield of their car. And again, it has the tiniest connections to what's going on in the movie. But then there's a scene after that, they go back home, and the babysitter for their kid, which I don't even know if we mentioned that, but they have a kid. But the babysitter, who is Gillian Jacobs from Community, and I love her. But
I didn't catch that, actually.
Yeah, that's a younger Gillian Jacobs. Or I guess not even that. Surprise. It's 5 years ago. Fuck. But he takes her home, which is actually to, like, a motel. But the line she has to him, like, he has, like, a little bit of blood smear, I guess, on his hand, and she's just like, "You've got blood on your hands." He's like, "What is that supposed to mean?" And just everything she says is just kind of very heavy-handed, but also kind of funny.
Yeah. Well,
and he was like, "Someone must have been pushing your buttons."
Yeah, the thing is, they are having the strangest conversation. She is just avoiding eye contact, acting extremely weird, and he's acting like nothing's going on. It's a very strange scene.
It really is, and since this is the 70s, I automatically thought they were having something going on.
Yeah, and then we get Gillian Jacobs gets back to the hotel. There are a bunch of people, like, her nose starts bleeding. There are a bunch of people. Yeah,
we found out, like, that's not even her, whatever name she gave them isn't her real name, and she's part of this big convoluted plan. He's one of Frank Langella employees.
Yeah, and she goes to this motel, and all these people just come out and stare at her. Like, everybody, there's a lot of blank people staring and lining up in this movie. Like, this is the first time it kind of happens. And she goes to her room where she has this elaborate map and, like, article set up like you would see, like, in a serial killer trying to find a serial killer type plot, like linking places and events, and that never comes back, and you really have no idea what the fuck it means.
It doesn't, but again, it's just kind of one of the subtle touches to kind of keep you interested and just not understanding what's going on. But I really did like that whole hotel room scene where she's kind of, like, going through the corridors and people are just popping out left and right. Like, that was a really freaky scene, and I enjoyed it. Very
cool scene. Like, definitely there were some
actually that is even my note during this scene. I was like, this is amazing. I have no idea what the fuck is happening.
Yeah, the half of my notes just end with the fuck question mark. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, this is definitely one of those movies, and I think that's kind of what Richard Kelly tries to do, is he wants people to kind of go in with a notepad and start writing down links. And I would say the thing this movie suffers from most is the answer isn't intriguing by the end, the way it is in Donnie Darko.
Well, see, and here's the thing, though, because I know this is based off of, like, a short story, and there was even, like, a Twilight Zone episode on it. I don't know that story, so I don't know if, like, that's how it actually ends, or if maybe the story is more of a simple premise, and then just kind of them dealing with it. I kind of want to go back and see if, like, he was kind of tapered by that, and just made the story the way it was, and then added in all his Richard Kelly shit into it.
I think that's what happened. Like, I can't imagine the short story would get this off the wall by the end.
Well, no,
like,
definitely not off the wall, but I'm not sure if, like, it actually ends with the cycle of what's happening, or if maybe the whole short story is just about them having to choose to kill somebody or not.
Okay. Yeah, I could see kind of the cycle if you take out all the conspiracy theory stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this thing delves
and again,
heavily into
the NSA
conspiracy.
is a big part of this movie as well. Like, Richard Kelly does not trust the NSA.
He fucking hates the NSA. That is what I have learned.
You know what? What I know about Richard Kelly, he hates the NSA, loves wormholes. Always wormholes, this guy. I think he saw the Abyss one too many times when he was a kid, and he's just obsessed with, like, water portals and wormholes. Yes.
And he also loves old people staring very ominously.
Yes.
That appears quite often with him. Where the fuck are we?
Oh, we just got done at the whole hotel scene.
Yeah, so, and this is where we find out about the wormhole, actually, is that NSA is usurping NASA's things, and for one thing, they have is a wind tunnel that the NSA has apparently taken over, and you kind of see these guards standing outside a wormhole. You start seeing kind of images of that. You have no idea what the fuck it is. It's just kind of showing.
And
it
also
to you.
around this time, I'm not sure where the scene comes into play, but this movie really does have atmosphere. Like, this movie has such a creepy atmosphere. There's a point where Cameron Diaz is at home, and Franklin Ella's character calls her, and she's like, "Can I see you?" And he's like, "I'm watching you right now. I'm in your backyard." And it cuts around, and there's just this like old kind of zombie-ish looking guy with an open mouth staring at her in the backyard. That fucking made me jump. That creeped me the fuck out so bad. But oh man,
yeah, no, it was insane. I was like, what the fuck? Oh, it's almost comical though by the end, with his mouth just hanging open
it is by the end. But at first, I just like jumped a little bit. I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And then he starts moving around. I was like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, and there's also like, this is also where people kind of start showing up to either the husband or wife, and like they'll give them, they'll either tell them or hand them cryptic messages. They'll
tell them not to trust each other and shit.
Yeah, and then they'll just kind of pass out, and it'll all pass, and they don't really seem to know what they're doing. So you kind of get the idea that something's happening to these people. Someone is taking control of them. And then let's just go to the
let's go to the library.
Yeah, the library. That's what I was gonna
by the
say.
way, this whole scene of the library, which is an extended scene, probably at least 10 minutes, is my favorite of the film. I think it's beautifully shot. It looks beautiful. I like the flow of the shots. The only complaint I have, how come there's no angels there?
You know, that's what I learned from City of Angels, is that's where the fuck they hang out.
Yeah,
Come
and
on.
if anything, maybe
it.
just all of his employees, all the people in there, maybe those are angels. Maybe angels are just Martians.
Yeah, and I will say I agree with you. This whole scene looks amazing, has great atmosphere, but then the choice aspect that we'll get to is so
when
ridiculous.
it ends to where like it kind of leaves the library, so to speak. Like, they're still technically at the library, but when it's no longer just them moving along the stacks and like the intense drama that's coming from that and people following them, once it gets to what happens after that, then it loses me. But everything leading up to that is fucking beautiful.
Yeah, so essentially both the husband and wife kind of get led to the library to look at these things. Cameron Diaz to watch a film that has Frank Lagella's character in it, kind of hanging out, and then
just hanging out.
That's essentially what happens. Like, it seems to me almost pointless that she watched that film, except to know that he was once involved in NASA shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only point I got from it.
Yeah, which is kind of the same thing with James Marsden, because he actually already knows, because that picture that they found at the party, he took it home, and he has like this big layout of a picture of this whole NASA crew. Yeah. And he's like, oh, that's where I know this picture from. Frank Lanella's head right there, which is the only one that you can actually see the face clearly, and it's obviously photoshopped. But yeah, that's where I know that from. But he still goes to the library just to like open a book that is out of place and see an article where it talks about him getting struck by lightning.
Yeah. And then like pretty much this is the part where library patrons just kind of start crowding around to kind of push them in certain directions, and there's this really amazing scene, like Marsden's just getting pushed by these people behind them, and they're walking faster. They get like the flying V from the Mighty Ducks.
Oh yeah, totally. They kind of lead them to where he's going, but it's just it's such a creepy scene, and just
it is. Well, I love when they get in the main hall, or like the reading room of the library, the huge reading room, and there's all these people at tables that just turn around to watch Marsden, and he just slowly walks up, and he gets stopped at the front by,
and then everybody stands
library.
up behind him, and
the librarian lady just kind of like makes a motion for them to rise, and they all get up and stand up behind him, and then just this classic Kelly kind of dialogue that's just like, this library is for employees only, like very cryptic, like you can't.
Well, yeah, but also that kind of makes sense, just because Langella's character keeps referring to all of his people as his employees. I was like, oh, this is for employees only. You're not allowed to be here. But his line, I love. He's like, I'm looking for the nearest exit. I want us to be like, boom, no exit.
No exit. He's testing you.
Which,
He's
by the way,
testing
when this
all
is
of us.
going on, and from this scene, we basically get taken to the liquid doors scene. This is where it gets
That
to
is-
very, like, kind of Donnie Darko-esque stuff going on. And there's still
Yeah.
40 minutes left in the movie at this point. So, mind
Exactly.
blown.
It's just like I thought this was getting close to the denouement. Like this is about to reach climax. You think this is the climax?
No,
'cause the
not
the
at
music.
all. This is the beginning of the third act.
Yes, this is what leads to the rest of the movie you're about to watch. It is insanity.
Yeah,
And-
so basically these 3 large liquid doors kind of build up from the floor, and there's a lot of cryptic talk about, one will be salvation, the other 2 will lead you to damnation,
Yeah,
and he
this
has to choose, and of course he chooses number 2, because everyone kept tossing him the peace sign.
yeah.
Which-
and I mean it's also this is the beginning of a lot of not like first all like it's a mix between kind of like pointing towards aliens, but then also a lot of religious kind
There
of
is a
talk
lot of
mixed
religious,
in.
which I think is kind of the more connection to No Exit. But yeah, the way it's set
Yeah.
up, and especially how they keep talking about Mars, and he was working on the Mars project, and then he got struck by
Yeah.
lightning. Like, it makes it seem like it is Martians doing this, deciding whether or
Yeah.
not our society and our people should survive.
Well, they also harp on the Asimov quote: "Any significant advance in technology
Is seen as magic.
It's indistinguishable from magic."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're definitely kind of pointing to this alien life form as a form of God. But it kind of gets lost in the mess that's about to happen after this.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. So, I mean, but still, it makes enough sense, and I will say that by the
I
end of
followed
it,
it, yeah,
even though I
it's
didn't know
not-
what was happening throughout the movie, by the end, it actually wraps it up nice enough to where I was like, oh, that's actually kind of a coherent narrative.
A little bit. A little bit. It's
But I will say,
almost-
there is when he finally does choose the door and he goes through it, then there's, again, just very much a Kubrick nod and very much a
Oh, yeah,
2001 kind of like
Definitely.
going through space scene. Where it's just like lines and colors and shit.
Yeah, it's a lot wider than Kubrick's was, but yeah, definitely a huge nod to the ending of 2001.
Yeah. But then,
And
like, he, in doing so, he goes through all that, and then he ends up, like, kind of in a floating waterbed above Cameron Diaz on her bed, and she kind of, like, pokes it, and then it just, like, water comes down everywhere. And I thought it was a really well-shot scene, and it looked really cool. And I think, yeah, what I wrote down at this point was, like, this is fucking brilliant, I think. Like,
Yeah, just like this could be good, maybe. I don't know.
it's hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure it's brilliant.
And yeah, and the kid kind of tells him, "Oh, you walked in like a zombie last night." Blah blah blah. And it gets explained what Frank Lagella's character is after this. Like, there's this whole weird subplot that involves this one guy from NASA talking to this other guy from the NSA, and him kind of explaining that.
Well, yeah, see, this, I think that they could have, I mean, I want to say they could have done without, because it is just kind of like exposition for exposition's sake to kind of catch everyone up on the plot.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know if I would have understood it as well without that scene, so
Yeah,
I
this-
kind of feel like it needed it.
Yeah, it's definitely exposition. It's kind of explain. Like, oh, it's so weird. It kind of sets up Langella's character as a sort of immortal angel type thing. That he was supposed to die, and then essentially got struck by lightning, and his cell degeneration just quit.
Yeah, he kind of basically got taken over by some sort of alien entity, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what they're implying.
But
And-
again, the thing was, it just makes me think Martians, because they were working on a Mars project, and it was apparently some kind of signal sent back from their shit on Mars that went into his body or like electrocuted him or something, and that's what killed him. So I was thinking he got taken over by ancient Martians.
Yeah, but let's get to the wind tunnel, where it starts off. So it starts off so crazy because you see the people that you know have already been kind of had their brains taken over, and they are lining up to get into the wind tunnel or to walk through it, essentially. And that's when we get explained the whole box situation, where they have a whole table full of boxes, and Langella is essentially talking about.
It's all about boxes. It gets fucking meta in this scene.
It gets so fucking meta and strange, and I mean,
I do
he
like
makes
his
this
little speech though, where he's
Yeah,
just
the
like,
speech about boxes.
we give you, the choice with this box. You live in a box. Your car is a box on wheels. It takes you to work in a box. You come home to your box, and then eventually you die and go to the ultimate box where you rot in the ground.
Yeah. And it's a cool speech, but then he kind of explains that whoever his employers are, his master. I don't know if he calls them masters, but
I think he just says employers.
Yeah, who his employers are testing humanity. And essentially, if enough people fail the test, which is will you kill someone for your own personal gain?
If enough people push the button, they're gonna destroy humanity.
Yeah, essentially, and that's kind of where the movie's trying to go.
Yeah, so of course humanity is doomed, but we find out it's just because women are bad.
That is something we find out, but before that. Then who are those people going into the wind tunnel? Are they the people that actually passed the test? Like, are they getting taken over because they passed the test?
No, I don't think they passed the test. I think those are just the people that are, like, their employees. Like, the people that they've taken over. So I guess they're...
But why are they sending them through the wind tunnel? Because it appears like they can go back to normal. Is kind of what I had gotten from the movie. They just kind of keep some of them hanging around. Or do they just... have them forever after that, because there's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with the people, but I kind of feel like they did their job and now they're kind of letting them go, or they're sending them somewhere else.
I guess they're letting them into heaven, I guess. I don't like whatever afterlife, because afterlife comes into this too. God damn it, this movie. It's
But yeah, it's weird. God. And that's why, like, I do feel like at this point, after this whole scene, it does get a little bit more like No Exit. Like, it almost kind of feels like from this point on, it's almost kind of like a dreamlike 70s melodrama. Like, everything is a little hazy, and it almost seems kind of like they could be like in some kind of purgatory or something like that. Like, I don't know, it just seems weird, like the lighting in it and kind of this weird white haze, almost like a dreamlike sequence kind of takes over from this point. And I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, and so...
And there's still like 20 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah, so essentially to kind of fly through this, or just kind of... So the father from the original killing at the beginning of the movie after they press the button shows back up, picks up Marsden's character, and they go for a drive, and that's where we find out this movie hates women, essentially.
Well, yeah, basically he gets held up at gunpoint and taken into the car. But yeah, we pretty much find out, they talk about like what happened, and he's like, did you push the button or did your wife? And he's like, my wife did. And he's like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, like,
and even later on, there's a scene of someone else being tested like that, and it's always the woman, apparently, that does it. That's what I learned from this movie. Women are bad, and they're going to cause the destruction of humanity. That's what Richard Kelly taught me.
I think he's trying to go for like an Adam and Eve kind of original sin type metaphor, but I don't think it came across. I think it just came across as Richard Kelly hates women and blames them for everything.
I could definitely kind of see that, and also I saw it more so as kind of like the 70s like manhood thing, to where they weren't quite, as masculine and manly as they'd always been. They were more kind of sensitive, and maybe the women were kind of more making the decisions and making the tough calls, and just kind of being like, our family fucking needs this. I'm doing this for us. Where the men are kind of like, I don't know, I can do this by myself. I don't need $1 million. So I kind of saw it more as that as well.
Yeah.
But it did kind of come off as like women are evil.
Yeah, and Marsden's also looking at this book that apparently explains what the water tubes were, like explaining the technology behind them, harping back to the Asimov quote.
I think he was just reading the script to The Abyss.
I think he was reading the script to the movie. Like, so where the fuck are we? Like, I don't get this. Like, that's just something that Richard Kelly hands out to try and explain the movie.
But I will say, during the scene, right while they're talking and everything's kind of getting explained, fucking Santa Claus is in the middle of the road.
No, this directly harps back to Donnie Darko. Like, it is exactly Frank the Bunny scene, because it starts with just a weird, ominous guy in a costume in the middle of the road, but instead of going off the road, they have to stop. Then they get hit by a Mack truck.
Which I admit, I did not see that car crash coming. That kind of took me by surprise. Yeah. But I did have one gripe. Actually, I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know if he was alive then. I think he's still alive. But why wasn't Santa Claus played by Richard Attenborough? Like the John Hammond from Jurassic Park? He should have been Santa.
I don't know.
I don't know. He might be dead. I would feel bad if he was.
Richard Attenborough?
Yeah. I don't know.
He might be, actually. I don't know.
Well, it was
on you if that's the case.
I'm sorry. It should have been his final role.
Really, that should have been his swan song.
Yeah,
Richard Kelly.
And by the way, if you happen to not be dead, I'm sorry for talking about you as if you were, and vice versa.
Because, Richard Attenborough, he's a big fan of our podcast, Dead or Alive.
We spared no expense.
We tailored our marketing directly to the Richard Attenborough demographic. It's a big demo in our field.
Well, I know at least 2 people in that field. So.
Let's get finished with this.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
What else did I learn from this movie? Oh yeah, never push the red button. Come on, guys.
Yeah, go on. And honestly, when it first came up, I was like, fuck yeah, I'd do that. I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, no, me too. But as it started to unfold, I was like, well, of course it's going to end badly for you, but as long as I got a little bit of time to go spend some of that money, it would be fun.
I mean, it's such a weird moral tale. It's just like, well, I can infinitely increase the comfort of my life, while just one more person among the myriad that are dying all over the world at any given time.
Yeah, and not just by natural causes, by fucked up shit happening in the world. Like, yeah, I would totally do that. Which, by the way, do you know how many fucking people there are in this world? Good, one more gone. Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I am all for population control. I have no problem pressing this button.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And if it came back to me at some point in time and someone pushed it and I died, you know what? Good riddance. One more gone. Just helping the world.
It's just all part of the game, man. Just all part of the game.
Yeah, you gotta hit the button if you want to play the game.
Yeah, but this is where the movie.
Remember that movie, The Game? Love that movie.
You know what the box should have been?
It should have been the game.
Should have been the game. Why wasn't Michael Douglas in this?
Make a mashup called The Game Box.
I like it. It'll be the Game Box : Hellraiser. Think about it. A little reversal. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay, so we get to this whole weird scene. There's a research center, the husband's inside, there's a bright light from inside. Then
Which, that didn't make any sense to me, because I know, like, okay, apparently he got in the car accident, and I guess I thought he ran away or something, but then all of a sudden he comes out of this bright light.
And he's on a stretcher. It really, it should have just cut from the car crash.
Well, no, he's not on
to
the stretcher. Like, he's just coming out of the white light, and he's kind of stumbling, and then he drops to his knees, and they kind of pick him up.
And they really could have just cut from that crash scene to Diaz and Marsden being back at home. Would have made just as much sense.
Well, it's weird, because we basically, when James Marsden got kidnapped, so did the son and Cameron Diaz. But we go through this whole scene where, we learn a little bit more about what's going on. Then there's a car crash, and then they don't find anybody, so I guess you think he got taken again or something happens, but he comes out of a light in a hangar like he just teleported there. And then basically they drag him off and they're like, whatever's going to happen, it's not your fault, blah, blah, blah. And then they cut to a car pulling up and dropping them off at their house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we go back in the house, and it's like the final... It's the final game of the box.
Yeah, which again, this is a pretty intense scene, and it's pretty good, minus fake Cameron Diaz crying.
Yeah.
I will say the kid does a pretty good job.
The kid does do a pretty good job. The worst... Okay, so let's gloss over it real quick. Essentially, they have the choice, and the driver alluded to this earlier, that he had to make the choice between his wife and his child. And so he chose his child over his wife, and he had to shoot his wife. They were essentially...
Which, again, I wonder if this plays the same way, kind of with the pushing of the button. Because you see, when they do it, like, James Marsden doesn't want to do it, and Cameron Diaz kind of almost makes him do it. So I wonder if the same thing happened to the other guy, and it was still just kind of like the woman taking control, be like, no, fucking shoot me in the chest. This is for our son. This is for the good. And the man kind of being weak-willed about it.
Who knows? I mean, he did run away, which James Marsden doesn't do. So anyway, they can live the rest of their life with all their money, except their child will never hear or see again. He will be blind and deaf for the rest of his life.
Which, by the way, I probably would have taken that option. Like, you know what? You can learn to live with those things. Guess what? Especially with all the fucking money we have, we can make you have a comfortable life being blind and deaf.
Yeah, Helen Keller had led a very productive life for herself.
Yeah, it's either that or he shoots his wife, and he has to deal with whatever the consequences are, and his son will regain his sight and his hearing, and the money will be put into like a trust fund that he'll get when he's 18.
Yeah, and so you know what? I mean, that seems like a good option. Like, you know what? We fucked up. Let's at least this will give our son
again,
it's
kind of like they're repenting their sins. Like they're kind of making up for the bad choices they made. Blah blah blah. They're showing that humanity ain't all bad by more killing. I don't know.
But the worst part about this scene is that they're trying to make they're trying to make me care. They're acting like I care about these characters when these characters have not grown on me at all. Like, I have no feeling for them.
You feel bad for Cameron Diaz because her foot's fucked up, and you feel bad for James Marsden because they wouldn't let him be an astronaut.
Oh, yeah, like. It's just, like, I have no concern or care about what happens to this family or these people. Like, the only reason I'm still in this movie is for the weird plot contrivances I'm trying to follow.
Yeah, and again, it is a bit overplayed, and I think there's even, like, the swell of music, and I think it even plays a little bit in slow motion to where it's kind of overdone. They could have just, like, oh, he shoots her, and then, whatever.
It should have been a lot shorter of a scene.
It should have. They tried to play it out, though, but yeah, that's the problem, is that you really don't have that much investment in what happens to these characters. You know something bad's going to happen. You know this is going to end bad for them. You already know that. So just do it. Like, don't try to make us feel bad about it. But I will say there are two more kind of shots in this movie that are just reminiscent of other movies. Like, there's a scene where the kid, after he wakes up, is kind of like crawling out of the bathtub. And that really, even the way it's lit, was almost kind of like a Train Spotting moment of like Renton coming out of the toilet. Like, it just, with that desperation of coming out and kind of crawling on the floor, like, that's kind of what it reminded me of. And even right after that, after he shoots a wife and like they're coming up the stairs, I guess the cops are coming up the stairs, there's like a psycho stairway shot, like shot from above as they're coming up the stairs. So like this movie is all over the place.
It's I wouldn't say Train Spotting. I would almost say, and I'm sure it's not actually trying to draw from this, but it almost looks like a Saw scene with the kid coming out of the bathtub. It's almost like the guy that immediately comes out of the bathtub at the beginning of
a little bit. I guess maybe just like the way it was shot with him kind of crawling over the edge of the tub, it almost kind of looked like coming out of the toilet and Train Spotting to me.
I could see that. You know what it else kind of looks like? The Ring. The girl coming out of the TV.
Don't fucking remind me of that. I have spent 10 long years trying to forget that so that I can sleep at night, and you just bring it up all willy-nilly.
Oh god, I love The Ring. That is such a frightening movie.
Anyway,
so Marsden kills Diaz. The boy's locked in the bathroom. Bravo. But Marsden stays. He maybe gets arrested, maybe not. And the box goes to another family.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know, like, because it seems like he's going to get arrested, but then some other people take him over, and even like he kind of his buddy comes up to the window and is like, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you and your son and stuff." So I don't think he's not in handcuffs or anything. So I don't know if he is. I don't know.
Yeah, another weird thing that happens is right when Marsden is going to shoot Diaz, it kind of cuts over to another family with the box, and it's so phoned in for something that was so obvious from the first time it happened that they're making this connection between the box being pushed or the button being pushed and someone dying.
Well, I think
it's a revelation.
That's the thing, but they say, they show that there's nothing actually in the box. There's no mechanism in it. It's just a button. So I think that's kind of more to bring up more questions, kind of like, oh, well, what if that family had decided to not push the button? Does that mean he wouldn't have shot her, or would he have done that anyway? Or is it just predetermined and they knew that they were going to push the button and shoot her at the same time? Like, I don't know. I think it was just a thing to bring up more questions at the end of it, of more possibilities.
That's the other thing. And I guess let's just call this the end of the movie. But another thing is that if the button isn't pressed, they say they're going to reprogram it. But assuming that the pushing of the button is kind of looked at as a secular thing and it keeps repeating itself until someone breaks the cycle, then if it's reprogrammed, who starts off dying that time? Like, if they press the button, or like, because
I don't know. I don't know if it's connected that way. I don't know. I mean, they could have just said the word reprogrammed for whatever, but they could have just meant
that's true. Yeah.
That they have boxes all over the place. They always have options. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could be right that. I mean, there isn't anything inside the box, but also going back to Asimov, there's any significant technological breakthrough is indistinguishable from magic. So
could be, but I think more so the way they're saying this is an experiment is to test what humans will do for like greed or wealth or whatever, as opposed to valuing human life. So I'm not sure if it really is just all free will and like pushing the button is just kind of like a metaphor for like what you will do, or just kind of like a gesture more so than actually pushing a button causes someone to kill someone else. Because I think, again, because James Marsden could have not shot Cameron Diaz, I guess, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know if like them pushing the buttons sealed their fate, or if that's just saying that's how humans are, or if it's just trying to bring up more questions like this so that idiots like us can discuss this after we watch this fucking movie.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, and I think this is where the movie fails, is I'm not actually that invested in this. I am not, like, this is the deepest I will ever discuss this movie, and I'm kind of tired of it already, because I don't feel like this movie warrants looking into it that deeply, the way that I felt about like Southland Tales, where I kind of love taking it apart.
No, seriously, I definitely just kind of want to talk about Southland Tales with you after we get done with this, because that I'm always down to do.
Yeah, no, love Southland Tales. I really need to watch it again. It's been a while, but
I couldn't help myself after watching this. I was just like, "Fuck, man, I've missed me some Richard Kelly." And then this morning, I got up early and I watched Southland Tales before we did this.
I really wish Southland Tales had done better. It would have. Because I would have loved to see him do more stuff like that. Because it was awesome. It was so much fun. And it was deeper. It was deeper than you would expect from something like that.
It does, but after that bombing and then this bombing as well, like, I feel like in order for him to get something made, he has to scale it back even more. Like, he has to make something very small and personal on a low budget, probably with, not Cameron Diaz, but with smaller scale actors. And I think it might be good for him. I think he might be able to get something good out of that, maybe build up his cred again, and then take a shot at, his second Southland Tales kind of movie.
I hope so.
I hope it does, because I am a really big fan of his, even though, like I said, it's kind of hard for me to watch Donnie Darko anymore. I still fucking love Southland Tales, and this wasn't a fantastic movie, but it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I was entertained, and it was intense. I was with it the entire time, and the main good things about the movie is the cinematography and the lighting and like the flow of the camera in the scenes and the way the scenes play out is fucking top notch. Like, he is just a really good director in that regard.
Oh, he is, and that's what's really depressing about him kind of getting excised for these things. And like I said, I really think if this had come out after Donnie Darko, it would have done better, not great, but a lot better, and then maybe Southland Tales could have happened. But he probably couldn't have done Southland Tales unless it was right after Donnie Darko, when they're just kind of like gonna let him go and do whatever he wants.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. That's your sophomore year, man. You make something that people like. It's kind of an underground hit. You get some clout, and then they let you go make Mallrats. They let you go make Southland Tales. I mean, it happens. They let you go make School Days. Things happen.
Shit happens, man.
Yeah, sophomore year, but guess what? You learn from it. Your head shrinks down a little bit from how big it got, and then you go make something more personal, and you make something smaller, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
see, I don't feel like that's what Richard Kelly did. I feel like he was still trying to push buttons, but trying to make it more like Donnie Darko.
Well, see, I think that's the thing, is that I feel like he did scale it back a bit because he had to, budgetary wise, just because of what happened with Southland Tales. But I do also feel like, even though I think he liked this story and wanted to do it, I think he also felt like he had to go more back towards Donnie Darko to kind of regain some of the clout he lost with Southland Tales.
Definitely. And this movie definitely feels like Donnie Darko. Like, even, like, and I know Donnie Darko's the 80s, but just, like, the period piece aspects of it feel a lot like Donnie Darko. There's the Santa Claus in the middle of the street, which I thought was way too close of a callback directly to Donnie Darko.
Yeah, and there's the kind of, like, the water tunnels and wormholes and shit.
Yeah, that stuff, too. Ugh.
I don't know, but again, I would definitely recommend watching this movie to anyone, especially if you were a fan of Donnie Darko or Southland Tales. So Donnie Darko.
Fan of Southland Tales, I think we're the only two.
Yeah, so Cole, I recommend you watch this movie, The Box.
Oh, good. I'll have to get right on that. But yeah, I mean, it's good for a once through. But don't take it too seriously, and don't keep notes like we did.
Yeah, definitely not. Like, I could see myself maybe watching this one more time to see if there's more subtle things, but I kind of don't think so, because knowing his work, I was kind of looking for subtle touches throughout the film.
I think that's the thing, yeah, is you're kind of, that he's kind of played his hand now, and so trying to do these very outlandish things, you're kind of, we're more on the lookout for red herrings and things that aren't going to add up.
Yeah, so, but I didn't really notice too many in this one, like, so I might go back and watch it for that, but it seems more like those kind of things he just put front and center and kind of threw in your face.
Yeah, that's true.
in this one.
It was a little bit phoned in, and maybe that's because he was trying to hold the audience's hand throughout it. Because he was like,
I guess he felt like,
"Man,
okay, these motherfuckers couldn't understand Southland Tales, so okay, here, I'm making a movie, it's about this, oh, but guess what, it's also kind of about this, look, no exit, no exit, no exit." Just kind of like, okay, let me hold your hand, come on, okay, we're gonna have this scene, they're gonna explain what's going on, you're gonna be okay, don't get too lost, oh, stay awake, stay awake. There is a cinematic incompetence beyond that which is known to man. It is a place where people can fuck up a simple idea as vast as a Kid Saves a Day film and as timeless as a It's Like Die Hard but in a school scenario. It is the middle ground between Toy Soldiers and Demolition High, between Under Siege 2 Dark Territory and Speed 2 Cruise Control, and it lies in the baffling mess that is 1997's Masterminds. This is a podcast of cinematic minefields. It is an area which we call crushed celluloid. See you next time.